So there was a time thousands of years ago where there was this ancient Greek general named Pyrrhus, and you've probably heard the term pirate victory. We might get into that today. Anyway, like my fire here, it's a little okay. So Pyrrhus was basically a conqueror. He would raise an army, he'd conquer some land, then he would marry the local princess and become the king of that land, and then he'd use all the wealth he acquired to hire another army to go conquer the next territory. And he had his eyes on the Italian peninsula. He was going to conquer this whole place and make it his own. And this was in the times of the Roman Republic. And the Roman Republic wasn't perfect, wasn't ideal by our standards today, but at the time it was the most free and egalitarian society possibly in the whole world that I know of. And Pyrrhus wanted to just turn the whole place into this petty dictatorship, and it looked like he was going to succeed. He defeated four Roman armies. As he marched from southern Italy and worked his way north, every city he went to, they either fell to him or they joined him. And finally, the Roman Republic made their last stand at a place called Maleventum, which means an evil wind. And that's where this story takes place. So the story goes that the people who were fighting and defending Maleventum, a lot of them weren't trained Roman soldiers. They were just farmers, peasants, artisans who were just forced to pick up a spear or a sword and try to defend their land. And that's what they did as best as they could. But, they were outnumbered by these fierce trained soldiers. Um, Pyrrhus had 21 elephants that were trained for war. And what do you do against an elephant if you just got like a little spear or something? So it didn't look like this was going to turn out well for the Romans. And the story goes, the story that I was told, is that this line of Roman soldiers, who again were just farmers who kind of got forced into this situation, they didn't really know how to fight. They're standing in a line on the edge of this forest with their spears, getting charged by these huge elephants that are trained for battle. They're being guided by people riding on top who are trained in battle. There are archers on top of the elephants shooting arrows. It's just really a bad situation all around. And suddenly, one of these young soldiers just threw his spear on the ground and ran away. And his friends just thought, "What are you doing, you coward? What are you doing?" But he had a plan. He wasn't just running away. He ran to the nearest fire because I forgot to mention there are all these watchfires, scattered around different places of the camp. He ran to one of the watchfires, grabbed this big burning branch out of it. It was like, I guess a long tree branch, maybe 5 or 6 feet long, with leaves or pine needles at the end, burning. He ran back over, and just as the elephants arrived, he waved this in the eyes and the face of one of the elephants. And the elephant backed up on its hind legs and turned around and fled and trampled some of Pyrrhus's troops and set the other elephants into a panic. And it turns out this guy was a farmer, and I like farmers, even though I haven't been able to call myself a farmer for very long. It's just a new thing for me. Anyway, this farmer had grown up seeing animals, and he knew that elephants were just big animals. He thought, well, maybe we can deal with them the same way we deal with a horse or a cow or something else. And he knew a lot of animals that were afraid of fire. And he had observed that as the elephants charged, they kind of cleared away and tried to avoid these watchfires that were built around the Roman camp, that were burning around the Roman camp. So that's why he got up this burning branch, chased the elephant away. And the story goes that after this, all these other elephants, all these other Roman soldiers, excuse me, showed up, started grabbing flaming branches out of the fire and waving them in front of the elephants and driving the elephants back. The archers would wrapped rags around their arrows and lit them on fire and then shot them towards Pyrrhus and his troops. And you got to remember, they were still outnumbered, outclassed. These were better. They were facing a much larger army of better trained soldiers that had better weapons. They still lost the battle at Maleventum. But something interesting happened. It was so costly, most of the elephants were killed or driven away or just ran off. A lot of Pyrrhus's troops were trampled by the elephants. Even though he won, this is the term a Pyrrhic victory, he decided it was just too expensive to keep fighting the Romans, and he left the Italian peninsula, set sail for Sicily and later for his homeland, and he never came back, and the Republic was saved. And in fact, to celebrate this, a few years later, Maleventum, which means an evil wind, was changed to Beneventum, which means a good wind. And today it's the modern Italian city of Benevento. And I heard this story from the owner of a gelateria in Benevento. And I asked him, is this a true story? I mean, how do we even know this really happened? And he said, we don't know that it really happened. But this is a story we tell our children because we want them to know we should always be resourceful. No matter how bleak or daunting your situation seems to be, there's always a watch fire. There's always something around, some resource, some tool you're not using, something you can pick up that's going to turn the tide and possibly help you. And so that's the first story of Maleventum Beneventum. You've always got resources. There's always something there. There's always a fire, a watch fire that will help you. And there's another story about Beneventum that I think is even more important and bigger, but I'll save that for another day. Remember, there's always a watch fire.